Okay, so I am so excited to dive in today and really start to have an authentic conversation around living your most soul aligned life and the healing that it takes to really manifest getting in alignment with what your soul desires. So I'm so grateful to dive in with Jenny today. She is such an authentic soul, and she is just one of those people that will absolutely share with you so much wisdom from this embodied place. She really does speak her truth. She lives her truth. So I'm just really excited to dive in with Jenny today for you guys to experience her medicine. She's a wonderful human being and so wise for her age. I love it. So thank you, Jenny, for being here. And I'm really excited to dive in.
I am too. Thank you so much for having me on your amazing podcast. I am so excited to share some more about my healing journey, about how we can heal together as a collective, and how we can remove the things that are standing in our way when we're trying to manifest, because sometimes we are not aware of what's actually in our way and we're just keep finding us stuck in the same situation over and over again. And we're going to clear that up.
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited. She's like the queen of the unconscious. So I'm really excited to dive into that because there's so often that it's like our manifestations, we're really deeply desiring something and little things will come. And then that big manifestation isn't happening. And a lot of it has to do with what's happening on a subconscious level. So we'll definitely dive into that. I'm excited to dive into that. But to dial it back. So when you think about living your most soul aligned life or living in alignment with your soul, was there a moment in time where you realized that you were not living in alignment, like some sort of like a wake up call where you were like, okay, this doesn't feel right?
I think, there was a time where I thought I was living my best life and I thought I was healed or, like there's nothing in my way. But there was a lot of ways that self-sabotage showed up or unhealthy coping mechanisms that kind of were an indicator of me not being on the path with alignment with my higher self. And I remember a lot when I was younger that I used to drink on the weekend. So I never had a problem with alcohol per se, saying I would never drink by myself or, not know when it's the right time or when not. But it would be me going out and just in a way always ending up being blackout drunk, for example, or just being like, like I just want to have the weekend to really let loose and have fun. And back then for me, having fun meant just like getting out of my shell by being like almost unconscious because I wasn't really being myself. So that's for me was a good indicator when I just felt like I was kind of living for the weekend and in a way numbing myself and not being present with my body because I wasn't able either also to spend a weekend by myself and just being in solitude and enjoying that. I was like, oh, I need to do something. So another thing that showed up for me is just having this anxiety when people would be canceling plans or things not going the way I thought they would. And I'd feel rattled because I, didn't have a plan or knew what's going to happen.
You are speaking into my 20s, like 100%. When I think about all of my 20s, it was very similar where it was like living for the weekends. And my weekends were like stacked calendar. It was like Friday night plans, Saturday morning, Saturday during the day, Saturday night, Sunday plans. And it was like very much so not in touch with who I was and also utilizing or just, wanting to drink so I could come out of my shell. I think that's a really good way of saying it because I was like uncomfortable being me if I wasn't drunk, to be honest. And so it was like, and now I'm like, let's do this thing. I don't need to drink at all. Like, and people are like, are you drunk? I'm like, no, I'm just like high on life. It's like such an interesting shift. But it feels so much better in my body to not be blacking out all the time too. But that's a really fair indication of like, okay, let me tap into my body and see how I can come alive without needing, to be completely blacked out to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I resonate with that.
Yeah. Right.
I think, it is. And it's interesting too, because I think another way as well as we were talking about like getting distracted, or I don't know if you ever had this phase where you just talked to a guy for the sake of just talking to someone because you felt like, and I feel like just I see this topic, recurring topic a lot with clients where it's like, oh, you just kind of need someone to be there. And it doesn't matter if it's like a soulmate or necessarily, you know, the love of your life, but like just filling a void by talking to someone is something that feels very familiar when I was younger. It's like, oh, as long as you get, you know, like a little bit of love or something who connects with you, you avoid, you know, feeling alone or not, you know, not by yourself in a way.
Yeah. Oof. That's so powerful when you think about filling the void with just someone or something. And I feel like that's such a huge part of manifestation is being comfortable in the void, like the period in between when you're manifesting something, it hasn't come into the reality yet. And there's like this void period in between. So I guess we can just go ahead and jump there. How do you now navigate being in this space of, let's say you're like, I want to manifest this. It's not here quite yet. So there's like that little bit of a void period in between. How do you calm your nervous system before it comes in? Or is there something that you do that really calms you when there is a void and not having to fill it with external things or people?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think there's a few things to that. So first of all, I think sometimes we lose sight that the things we're trying to achieve are always the background of it is always that we're trying to achieve a certain emotion, a certain feeling. So as soon as we achieve something, and let's say you're waiting for your manifestation to come to reality, once that manifestation comes to your reality, you'll still get to that headspace of, okay, what's next and what am I working towards right now? So ultimately, as cheesy as the saying is of like the path is the goal, that's the saying we say in Germany. Maybe there's something similar in this in English and you can let me know, but yeah, so the path is ultimately the way, right, where we just learn to enjoy, to be in the present moment, to learn how to create those emotions in the present, in the here and now, before we just wait, oh, once I have this car, I'll feel happy. Once I have that house, or once I have that career, once I have that family, a partnership, then I'll feel at peace. So if we always are in waiting, we get stuck in waiting for the big things to happen in our life, right?
Mhm.
So what really helps is to learn how you can embody what you're trying to create with the thing that you're manifesting in the here and now. So
Yeah.
let's say I want a partnership where I feel so loved and connected, or a family. And you can consciously, that very moment right here, right now, on this day, choose to see how can I tap into this feeling that my family or partnership would give me, which let's see, that would be feeling seen and loved and held and calm for me. So I'll see like, okay, what are ways I can tap into that version of myself in this very moment?
Oh my gosh. Yes, yes, and yes. And what I love about that you're illustrating is that the void does not have to feel like the void. It's almost like a
Hmm.
term that's used, but it's exactly as you were saying about that phrase that you use in German, where it's like, it's not a void because you're literally living it right now. You're on the journey. The journey is the thing, right? It's like, that's the thing that
Hmm.
you're actually going after. And it really is all about like I've heard people say, I've had clients say like, I want a six pack. And I'm like, why do you want a six? How would that make you feel? Well, healthy.
Hmm.
And it's like
Yes.
healthy, energized, in tune with my body. And I'm like, what if you start to feel in tune with your body and start to intuitively eat and then start to intuitively move? And then it's not about the six pack at all. It's about what does the goddess within me desire to feel right now? What does she desire to
Hmm.
eat that would fuel her? And then they're like, I don't actually want a six pack at all. That sounds miserable. It sounds like I have to really cut calories and stuff. Like they're like, actually, I mean, if it comes, great. But if it doesn't, I just want to feel good. And so it's like
Hmm.
really connecting with like, sometimes the thing that we think we want is not actually the thing when we connect to what's the feeling that we want. And then we go
Yeah.
after the feeling instead by embodying it now.
And also, I think it's really interesting. Sometimes when we manifest things, we kind of get stuck in waiting energy,
Yes.
right?
Oh,
And, you
yes.
know, we talk
Uh-huh.
about like waiting energy can create lack because you just like, you don't feel like you have enough or you aren't enough or there isn't enough, right? Because you're, so you can call in more of that lack and that waiting, instead of, again, what you're just talking about, embodying what you're trying to create, right? It always shows up in your mental picture and in your vision and in your feelings before you actually see it in your external world.
Yes. Yes. Oh, so beautiful. So beautiful. And for those that may be new to manifestation, the reason you want to, well, one, you want to embody the feelings because that feels good, right? Duh.
Mm-hmm.
And two, it gets you to that vibrational frequency of the thing that you're manifesting as well. So you're then a match for the thing you're calling in. And so it's kind of a win-win. It's like, let me choose to be happy now. And oh, by the way, you now are in alignment with the thing that you're calling in that would also, quote unquote, make you feel happy. And so, yeah, it's like, why wait? Why not go ahead and feel happy now? What is the thing that has us wait? And it's like to your point, exactly as you were saying, it just puts us in the lack energy. And then it just creates more of that.
And it makes you think you need something
Yes.
in order to be happy. Right. Whereas, all you need is already within you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting too, in case whoever is listening to this is new to this idea of the thought world. So one of the most important things that I teach and talk about when I work with clients is understanding the fact that thoughts ultimately always create your results, right? Your thoughts create your emotions. Your emotions inspire you to your action or inaction, and that action or behavior ultimately results in your circumstance, right? And what your end result is. So it's really interesting to see it's not really, let's say, the result or the current circumstances, the absence of what you're trying to manifest. It's not really, that's the absence of it what really matters. What matters is your thought about the absence of what you're trying to manifest. So it really trickles back, how powerful of a manifester you can get, how you can manage and see your thoughts that ultimately create your emotions, right?
Yes. Yes. I think, okay, such a beautiful, beautiful way to put it. And I remember reading something somewhere and being like, whoa, where it's like, you're not your thoughts, you're the one observing your thoughts. And so it's such a powerful distinction. It's not like, oh, I'm thinking this, therefore that is me. It's like, there's actually a consciousness to you that's able to observe your thoughts and say like, pause, is that working for me? Because that feels really mean. Let me actually reframe this. Right. And so that brings the power back to yourself of saying like, I'm actually in the driver's seat when it comes to my thoughts.
Yep. Yeah. And that's so fun. I just, we talked about it earlier that I'm creating a course for women to really like learn how to become the best version of themselves. So learning how to up-level their mindset and emotions and embodiment. And one of the exercises that I wrote down and I'm going to film is learning how to separate you as a conscious being and your thoughts, because ultimately you have 60 to 90,000 thoughts that you experience every single day. So, oh my God, imagine you chase behind every single thought that appears, in your reality. So it's impossible to focus on everything that just comes to your mind. And it's good though to understand, okay, I have all these thoughts, but these thoughts are not me. They're simply, I see myself as the sky. Okay. So you're the sky and your thoughts and emotions are clouds, right? You simply notice them. They come and go. They never stay forever, right? They always move. But what stays the same is that you have a consciousness and you're experiencing them. The sky doesn't over-identify with them and say, oh my God, I'm so cloudy. This is never going to end. It simply sees, oh, there's some clouds right now, right? And it helps us to kind of see, I can separate my consciousness simply being aware of my thoughts and emotions and experiencing them as a vessel who is on this earthly experience versus I am my thoughts. And that's what creates suffering most of the time. When we start over identifying with all these thoughts that are not helpful. So one of my favorite things, how you can conquer this is really, like, first of all, being aware. So self-awareness of your thoughts and emotions. But then second of all, asking yourself, would this be a thought I would consciously be producing in my mind? Right? And if the answer is no, then you can just take a step back and see, like, interesting, this might be self-sabotage or something limiting that's coming up, but not necessarily a thought that I want to identify with. And that's where this empowerment aspect comes in, that you can choose to not give power to that thought, right? Because it's simply a thought that comes and goes.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, so empowering. Then an exercise that's been helping me recently as well that I've been leaning into is like, as thoughts, because negative thoughts will come through, like we're human, it happens. And it's just being aware of them and not letting them take over when we don't want them to. And so it's that idea of like, I was noticing negative thoughts coming through and I started to ask myself, is this always true? And my answer was always no. Like, it's not always true. It was like I was catastrophizing things of saying like, I'm terrible at this. And it's like, is that always true? No, actually, 95% of the time, I'm really great at this. I'm just giving myself a
Mm-hmm.
really hard time right now. And it's like we make these thoughts into like a much bigger thing. And it's like, wait a minute, is that always true? No. And in fact, it's actually almost always not true. I'm just really focusing in on it right now. And so that's really helped me too, is just being like, could we shift this? It's just like taking it out of your head and being like, let's examine this one for a second. Yeah, that's not working for me. Bye.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Goodbye.
Right.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, I love it.
Yeah.
So something else that's coming through when you think about living in alignment with your soul, was there anything that you felt like you really had to overcome to get to this to space you're in right now? Like I know you had mentioned before, drinking on the weekends and things like that. I don't know that necessarily that was something you had to overcome, maybe, but was there anything or any time in your life where you're like, I really feel like I just need to overcome this to get to the other side?
Hmm. Yeah, I think the things that we talked about weren't things I had to overcome, but more the crutch that I was leaning on that was just, seen as an unhealthy coping mechanism in that moment. Things I had to overcome, I think one of the most important things I had to learn and embody on my journey was moving to a secure attachment in not only romantic relationships, but the relationships with my friendships, with business, with life, really. Because when you have like an attachment that is, let's say, an insecure attachment that could be, being more anxious or avoidant, it really makes you not trust the same even with clients, right? When you work, like, do you trust people showing up? Do you trust things to come in and good things to happen to you? So it really is one of the things that I learned and that I transformed in my early 20s was learning how to move to a very secure, confident attachment style and version of myself from being a little more frazzled because I didn't grow up in a household where I'd say I learned to have a secure attachment style, if that makes sense. So it really, really helped me, as I said, not only in my romantic relationships, to trust and to stop sabotaging them. But also, again, in my business and like leaning into my purpose and traveling and fully learning to embrace being me as a woman. And
Mm,
then the other thing that I really had to learn is how to embody being worthy,
mhm.
because a lot of us don't grow up learning that they're worthy of all the things they desire. And they think they have to go through hardships or something bad has to happen, or it's simply not in the cards for them. So like learning how to develop that trust in yourself and in the universe and in your surroundings and in your environment, that everything that is meant for you is going to come to you in its own timeline if you learn how to trust and surrender and
Yeah.
open yourself up to feel worthy about what you're desiring.
Mm, take me to church. It's like, wow. The thing that you just said that really blew my mind, and I've never thought about it this way, and I think it's so cool, is when you were like talking about attachment styles and how it's not just to relationships, it's to like your business, to money, to like, it's like it's all a mirror, but like how interesting to start to think about creating a secure attachment in all areas of your life, not just in relationships, like relationship to self, relationship to partner, friends, but like even
Mhm.
to things like business, things like your money, things, other things that you might not even think about. I mean, for some reason, I just never really put those two lenses together. Like that's so empowering.
Yeah. Yeah. If you think about it in your all your areas in life, it
Yes.
often is mirrored and reflected in how you, as you said, do business, how you in your friendships, how you take risks, right? How you trust yourself. All
Mhm.
of that is just merely a reflection of how you learned to perceive the world when you were a child. right? So
Yes.
those early relationships really influence the way you can show up as yourself, right? Is it safe to show up as myself? Am I being held and seen in my emotional experience? Can I trust myself, or are people, trying to constantly tell me how I should respond and react in this world? So all of these things just are going to be mirrored back to you. So it's really fun and awesome to kind of take a deep dive into that work and seeing, where can I learn how to trust and be that more confident version of myself.
Yeah. Whew, I love it. I love it. So would you say that you ever went through a quote unquote spiritual awakening? And to me, when I think about spiritual awakenings, I almost feel like it's waking up to the spirit within us too. And it kind of feels like this whole journey has brought you there. But was there any moment in time where you're like, even like some of the signs that we get, like I'm suddenly drawn to crystals, or, some people's experiences are different, but would you say that you had a spiritual awakening, or you continue to have those as you're growing?
That is such an interesting question that I've never, interestingly enough, thought about it in that way, because to me, I felt like my spiritual awakening came in baby steps.
Mm-hmm.
It's hardly ever, I feel like, on our journey, it's like, boom, this is it. And,
Yeah.
oh my God, I'm a changed person. But I know people that have that moment in their
Yes.
life. But for me, I think it was just this step-by-step movement of spirituality, like welcoming in this trust. And like, I did definitely have moments on my journey where I felt so deeply connected with, like my God within and in the universe, and like seeing, oh my God, I am being held and supported and seen. And I have seen those moments so often when I would just, cry and complain and throw a fit or a tantrum, basically, just to see at the end of the day everything turned out the way it was meant to turn out. Right. There
Yes.
was moments, I do think, for example, where I had a moment where this deep connection of when I used to be in a narcissistic relationship with a narcissist, and it was so terrible, and I was like, God, like, how could I on earth run into that person, and like, how did that happen to me? I should know better. And like, why would that happen? And just, like, seeing where I am right now, and like in a happy and healthy and loving relationship, I remember that moment being like, I would have never met him if I
Mm.
would have not gone through that. I would have never been able to help countless women on this planet if I wouldn't be able to relate so deeply to their pain. I would have never
Yes.
deepened my education and my path to really like helping that and turning inward and going deeper if I would have not had that experience. So I think like it did, after that relationship, for example, I really had some good moments of realizing, oh my God, I really am being deeply guided, even if I sometimes don't feel it in that moment.
Oof, you bring up such an amazing point. I've heard people say like your karma becomes your dharma, right? That's one way of thinking about it, but it's so true.
Mhm.
It's like these deep, deep, low, quote unquote moments honestly open our eyes. It's almost like when we're in the dark, it has us find the light, right? It's like we're in the dark and
Yes.
suddenly we're like searching for the light. And if I'm always in a light room, I'm not going to search for the light. And so it's like, how am I going to grow if it's always light out,
Mm.
And so it's like, it's part of actually why we have this human experience is like we drop in to experience some of the dark so we can find the light as well. And so how beautifully put, if just kind of like, everything truly is happening for me, even if it doesn't feel like it in the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I
Yeah.
love the saying that you said too about like how do you find light in the room of light? That's the perfect analogy.
Yeah. And it doesn't feel like that. Like we're like, I just want to be in joy and bliss all the time, and sometimes
Yeah.
it feels like when we're in the dark, it'll never end, but it always does end at some
And
point, right?
it does. And it's so funny. I talked about this yesterday, where I would never promise someone to like, oh, let's do this and go on this journey and you'll always be happy. That is not the point.
Right.
You came to Earth to be a human being.
Yes.
And newsflash, human beings are always going to experience a wide variety of emotions. You will always have happiness, but sadness, right? Like light and darkness and rain, and sunshine. So, and I love the saying, no, 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 there's no flowers without rain. It's
Mhm.
impossible for you to just always be happy. It's impossible for you to think you'll never feel bad again. I don't care who you are. I've worked with people that are millionaires, billionaires, that have the most beautiful families and the best houses and environments put in. And guess what? They still experience all the emotions that everybody else experiences. You're not, like shielded from them just because you're doing the work. Now, what the big difference is when you actually embark on a journey of doing the work is that you learn how to move through emotions, energy and motion. You learn how to move through those states quicker. You learn how to observe your mind instead of over-identifying with it, right? So you don't stay stuck forever on a certain thought or belief that just has entered your mind. So you do the work and you're able to choose to empower certain thoughts and choose to move through emotions, energy and motion. So that's the difference. The difference is you don't get stuck. Do I never have an intrusive thought or something coming up in my mind where I go like, ooh, that's terrible. Why am I thinking that? Of course, everybody does. Otherwise, we wouldn't be humans. But then you get the choice to empower that thought or, or see it with curiosity and see like, interesting. I see you having that thought. So I think there lays the difference. So, life is always, and Brooke Castillo says that she's an awesome coach. She always says life is 50-50. And that's just true for all of us. You can modify that and shift it to a more positive experience, but ultimately you're never shielded from not experiencing negative emotions.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I think that is one of the biggest distinctions is like when you get into this work, it's not that you won't have those low moments. It's that you know how to deal with them. You have the tools to then be able to move through it in an empowering way instead of having it eat you alive. I remember there were certain moments in my life where I'm like, man, that took me like a year to get over. Like one of my lowest lows took me probably a year of like therapy, counseling, all of this stuff to really move through it. And what was really interesting is I had a similar test happen, maybe like, I don't know how long ago, but a year or two after that. And it took me like 2 weeks to move through it. And then it's like, okay, if that were to happen again, it would take me like a day to move through it or an hour to move through it. And it's like, you just notice that it's like, okay, amazing. I really am changing as I lean into these tools more. And you have to say, yes, I'm going to try the tool. There's a part of our ego that's like, I want to stay in this. I'm comfortable in the familiar feeling of sadness, anger, whatever it might be. But you have to empower yourself to say like, I'm choosing into a different narrative right now because that actually feels better. The other just feels familiar. And I think that's part of the distinction too, at least what I've experienced and what my clients have experienced too, where it's like, it's just familiar. It doesn't mean it's quote unquote better for you. It's just familiar.
Yeah. Well, and it's really interesting too, if you look at it, why, for example, women often even stay in bad or abusive relationships.
Yes.
And people always go, why would you ever do that? Why would you stay in that relationship? Or why would you stay generally or in a work environment that doesn't value them, or all those things? Whereas your brain is not wired for you to live your best life. Your brain is wired for survival. Okay. And survival means, okay, if I have something familiar that's predictable for me, I'm going to choose that route. Because if it's predictable, it's happened before and it doesn't kill me, I can choose this, right? So that means I'm going to survive, right? So that way your brain is ensured that it's going to survive versus when you want to try something new, your brain will be like, oh my God, I've never done this before. I don't know what this, what could happen or what this could mean for me. And it could be potential danger because I don't know the outcome or the feelings. So your brain will always choose what's comfortable and familiar, even if it's bad or abusive or neglective for you, because at least it feels familiar. So
yes. Yeah. So would you say a big shift when people are wanting to choose the more empowering route, would you say that big shift is starting to really calm your nervous system as you're moving through like what quote unquote is unfamiliar, therefore the body thinks it's unsafe. So you start to bring the safety into your body as you're choosing something new?
I think working with your nervous system and calming yourself is one of the most important things. Like I always work from a body, mind, and soul approach because you need to embody, right? It's so often so funny. I always hear this. You are, you know what to do. in a lot of cases. You have the knowledge, you do, you've heard it before, you've read it before. So on an intellectual level, you know it. But here, the next step is to embody it.
Yes.
Right. So are you able to actually take aligned action? And I think in order to take aligned action, what you just mentioned, having a regulated nervous system and knowing how to get your body in a more calm state is so crucial, right? You can do all the mindset work if you want to. If you don't take it to an embodiment level, then you're going to have problems to really actually take aligned action.
Yes. Huge, huge. So would you say, and to switch gears just a little bit, was there ever a time when you were manifesting something and you felt like maybe it wasn't happening? So I feel like you kind of touched on this where it was like in the moment, it felt like, why is this happening to me? And then it was all happening for you. But was there ever a moment when you were manifesting and it wasn't necessarily happening and you actually switched approaches? So maybe it was a mindset shift. We've kind of talked about that a little bit, that allowed you to actually bring that manifestation in a faster way, if you will. So it's almost like you're wanting to manifest it. It's not quote unquote working. Did you shift approaches or change anything that had it actually work for you? If that's one way to put it.
Yeah, I think one of the most important shifts I've experienced before when I really wanted to manifest something and bring a desire into my life, was switching the thought and embodying the energy of, I want you, but I don't need you. So declaring, hey, I want this in my life and I'm standing behind it energetically, but I don't need it. I don't need it to happen. I can be content and happy and feel at peace in this very moment, even if the desire is not here, that person or that job or, anything else or material. So really having that shift of, I want you, but I don't need you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a huge one. And I think even like for some people who may be thinking, well, what about money? I really need money, quote unquote. What will the money bring you? The happiness, the freedom, no matter what, you still have access to happiness and freedom, even if you're filing for bankruptcy, right? It's like, even if you hit the rock bottom, there still is the capability of receiving what the money, quote unquote, would have given you, which is the feeling you're actually after. Would you say that that's the case as well?
Absolutely. It's interesting. Again, like I do think it's important to differentiate between needing money to survive. So if someone, is not able to have housing or transportation or having to feed themselves or their family, I think it's different of, okay, like how can I get as resourceful as possible and,
Yes.
build that up, because then it's less of an let's manifest and feel into that feeling
Right.
of it, because then it's really of like basic needs. I need to
Yes.
survive.
Right.
Versus like, hey, I want to create a life of abundance. I want to tap into my resources and be able to utilize them better. And money is a vessel for me to simply do that. So when you're in that state, as you said, like tapping into the feeling of what money is, creating for you, and also tapping into the frequency of feeling worthy and deserving of money. There's so much work around money, guys.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. To see like, how did you learn to handle and receive money? What was the belief of your parents around money or the society you grew up? Do you think money is evil, or do you think it's hard to acquire money? How do you think, can you use it? Are you bad if you use it for, like material things that you've been wanting to just have yourself? So it's really important to do some work around your beliefs around money. And as you said, it helps really to tap into what is the feeling it's trying to create and how can I take aligned action to get me there without feeling like I need it, right? But knowing it's going to show up 100%. If you know you can't fail, and if you take, aligned action in your right headspace, how would you feel today if you know that money is coming and you don't have to worry?
That's a fabulous question to take you into the energy of it. Yeah, I really love that. Woo! Amazing. So, is there a certain manifestation practice that you use that you feel like is incredibly effective that someone could put into practice right now?
A manifestation practice
Yeah.
that you
So
can
I
do
think
right here, right now.
yeah. So you kind of touched on it, like that idea of really dropping into the feeling, like that feels like an amazing manifestation practice. Is there anything else that you resonate with that's some sort of manifestation, even an embodiment practice too, where it's less about like, let me say 50 affirmations, because if you don't believe it, you could say until you're, you could say a million times and it would never manifest. It really deeply does drop into the feeling. But has there been anything that you're like, that has been so supportive for me?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I had to think of, okay, what's my go-to most favorite manifestation practice? I think one of my favorite ones is the one I start my day with. So I don't leave my bed before I go through my gratitude and visualization practice. So for me, that means really starting, like I try to be as intentional as possible into which version of myself I want to drop in today. And by that, I mean, I go to her who has embodied, who lives on her ranch, who has her houses, who has her horses in front of her house, who has a beautiful office that looks out right to her garden, who helps hundreds of women and like, finds soul aligned humans every single day, who has amazing friendships or like a really deep, loving connection with their partner. So whatever that is, I like to focus on. I really drop into visualizing what I would wear, how I would talk, what does it smell like, right? I really drop into that. And like the more detail you get, this is also a little hack, the more detail you can get about your visualization, the easier it's going to be for you to create that feeling within. So to drop into that frequency for that day. So I really try to consciously visualize, get as detailed as possible, see the laughter, see the people, see my phone popping up with a notification of, oh my God, you got so-and-so, or even when it comes to business, right, you received so-and-so many funds. So just seeing that, and then I get excited and, really visualize and drop into that energy.
Oh my gosh, that is so beautiful. 10 out of 10 recommend that. Like if you're listening to that, definitely. It's like, and why not? It's so fun to live that in your imagination. And it's so interesting when we were younger, at least when I was younger, it was like kind of laughed at, the imagination. And it's truly one of our most powerful manifestation tools. And we're meant to turn that back on. We deeply are meant to turn that back on. Because it really does have us drop into the feeling of it. When we can drop into the emotion of it, you think about movies, when you watch it, music playing, the tears that you're seeing, like it really brings you on an emotional journey. Allow your visualization to do that. Really let yourself fully immerse with all 5 of your senses, because the brain doesn't know the difference, right? And so it's like really starting to create that.
Yep, that's true. Even before, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's huge. Yes.
Yeah, I remember even before I was together with my partner, I would always visualize how we felt together. And I remember just again, like this question that we asked earlier, how would you react and be as a person if you know your desire is coming to you 100%? Made me like kind of relax, and I'll be like, oh my God, how are we together? And it's like we're playful. And I saw it's just, like having things that really bring us closer together, like shared hobbies and interests, and how our love felt and how he made me feel. So like I remember just seeing all of that even way before someone showed up, so I think it's important to kind of drop into that desire, have that clarity, and visualize. I think that's one of the most important tools that we can have and be equipped with on our manifestation journey.
Absolutely. And how cool too, to have that familiar feeling that once you met your partner, you're like, I remember this feeling. Now, it's in alignment with what you actually desire. It's like, it's in alignment, instead of just being caught up in like the lust of something. You're like, wait a minute, I'm like fully feeling all of the feelings that I was feeling in my mind. Right. Yeah. That's
I love that.
Yeah. So kind of to do a little bit of a spin on that too, is there a certain healing modality that you use that you feel like is really effective for in any areas of your life? Let's say as you're manifesting something, but you find there's like a block in the way. So you're like, let me actually heal the thing that's blocking me. Maybe it's like unconscious thoughts or whatever it might be. Is there something that you do that you feel like is really effective that someone could put into practice today as well?
Absolutely. I think, first of all, I pull a lot from my work from CBT, obviously, with my background and working a lot in mental health and working as a psychologist. I love CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, that helps you to kind of rewire your thoughts. And I do a lot of cognitive restructuring, which means replacing unhelpful beliefs with more positive ones. And I think one of the techniques that could help you or whoever is listening to this podcast and feels pulled to this work is really putting your thoughts on trial. I love this little
Yeah.
exercise because I want you to, okay, so when you do this exercise of putting your thoughts on trial, I want you to not just take a thought and take it as a fact and take all your assumptions about it that creates emotions within you and make it mean something about your life, the people in your life, or your circumstances. But rather, before you just take the thought and believe it, I want you to question it. I want you to take it to court, and I want you to just examine and say, like, is this true? How do I know if this is true? And, what will be a more helpful, positive belief if I can't prove that this thought is 100% true? So that's a great little fun technique that you can put on your phone, on your notes, to just kind of examine your thoughts.
100%.
Just take them.
I love cognitive behavioral therapy. That's one of my big go-tos whenever I find myself in negative thought spirals where you're like, wait a minute, I've been in this for a minute. Let me pause, take it to court, exactly as you said, and be like, is it actually working for me? Is this actually true all the time? Or is this true at all? And it's like, what's the evidence to the contrary? And then that's fun too, is really actually catching or getting the evidence to the opposite of that. Like, I love doing that because then it's like, oh my gosh, I've been living and identifying as this when there's so much evidence to the contrary. Wow. I didn't even realize that. It's like when we take it out of our mind, it suddenly isn't able to circulate. It's more black and white, and you can really look at it for what it actually is. Like, is this serving me? No, let me shift it. Yeah. It's huge. So huge. I love it. It's so simple. It's like, it's one of those where it's like, it almost feels too simple, but I'm telling you, if you do this, it will change your life. It really will change your life.
Yeah, I agree. That's awesome.
I love it. So tell us, where are you hanging out? So if someone wanted to get in touch with you or just wanted to learn more about what you do, how can they connect with you?
So I hang out a lot on Instagram. I love, I have a lot of free content, really valuable content in my reels and the posts. And we also have Instagram lives and workshops. So you can find me on Instagram on Jenny Meinen. So written together, JENNYMEINEN. So you'll find me there. You will also find me under my website, and that's jennymeinen.com. So JENNYMEINEN.com. And there you can actually see a couple opportunities how you can work with me. So I, from time to time, take on clients for one-on-one session for my signature one-on-one session program. Sometimes I have masterminds and we have master classes that come up. And I also have a really exciting, amazing course coming up this year for every woman that really just wants to become the best version of themselves in every area of their life, with all the bells and whistles and tools that you can dream of. So that's where you can find me. And if you're on YouTube, you can also find me on YouTube under Jenny Meinen as well.
Oh my gosh. Amazing. Amazing. You guys check her out. Jenny is absolutely incredible. It has been so much fun diving into all of these topics today. And what I love is that you gave these quick hitter tips on how to actually put it into practice right now. So Jenny, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for dropping in here with your wisdom. You are just the most beautiful human inside and out. And I'm just so grateful that you dropped in and shared so much wisdom in such a short amount of time. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been an honor to be here. You're such an amazing light in this world, and we should do another podcast and connect in the future.
Oh, you got it, girl. I'm in.
Let's do it.
Yes. I love it. Well, thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.